All right, welcome back, everybody. This is session 15 of our Unity 3D game development project here that we've been working on, codenamed Harvest. All right, welcome back, everybody. This is session 15. This is your host, Johnny Rush, Michael Trippy in real life, of course, but Johnny Rush when I'm streaming live and playing my games online. Anyway, we left off in the last stream where we finished up to a good functional portion of our player inventory system. We could drag and drop all the items, move to the right locations. We could put attachments in the proper slots for our primary weapon. We could delete items out of the inventory as well. We could just remove those out. So I mentioned in the last video that the next thing I wanted to do was maybe replace the third-party controller that I was using. I was using the Unity built-in from the standard assets. They have a third-party controller and a first-person, but I used the third-party, with the hopes of down the road doing a multiplayer network game, which would require the third-party controller to be able to see a third-party avatar and player and all that. Anyway. So I made mention to one in particular that was made by Invector. They have different versions out there, and just to see if it would work in our project here, I downloaded and imported the Invector. Hold on one second. All right, sorry about that. I had a call come in. I had to answer. Yeah. So, anyways, the Invector, they have a what they call a LITE version. It's a basic locomotion third-party controller with a default avatar guide that they have. And let me click on it here. Let's see, where is it? Invector. Here it is, third person. Now I went ahead and let me shrink down some of this. I was actually looking for something in there. Anyway, I went ahead and anyways, when you install it and import it, actually generally don't need to access it through there. It adds at the top of your menu system, or it integrates with Unity, an Invector menu. And depending on what package you purchase, like I said, I downloaded the free one just to see if this would work in our project. And so I came with the basic locomotion, and you click on this create basic controller. And so what you have here is this window that pops up, and you just drag in your FPX model here, which they provide one, and then the animator controller. All right, sorry about that again. As my supervisor, hey Trent, I know you're gonna probably maybe watch this one day. Um, anyway, yeah, he came by to get a key for the office. He locked himself out. Anyway, so you drop in your FBX model in this first box, and then the animator controller, you choose that. And so we scroll down here, the FBX. Actually, don't see it here, but you can go into their prefabs they have here, and they got this V third person right here, and you can just drag and drop that into over there, and then your animator controller, you want to make sure it's the Invector Basic Locomotion LITE if you're going to download this and use this in your thing. And now the model, if you have a different model you're going to drag in, the FBX model, it has to be set as a humanoid, and it has to be fully rigged, a fully rigged humanoid FBX model. So once you drop it in, if by default it does not get set as a humanoid, you need to do that once it's in here. So where we're going to check for that, let me show you real quick. Like I said, I created I ran that and generated one. I moved it into my prefabs folder, and this is the first one I did, and I renamed it VTPC. It was V third person controller, and you just need to make sure that it's set as a humanoid, which the option will show up when you go to generate it. I'm not seeing it right now on the model here. Yeah, I'm not really seeing it. Anyways, what I did was also download the Morph3D Male. They call the Morph3D Male version. They have a free one, the Male character, third-party controller, humanoid rigged, and I replaced the standard model that came with the Invector third-party controller with the one from the Morph3D. Now, when I imported the Invector, I left everything checked and just imported it into my project. Of course, I backed up my project like they recommend, just in case. But initially, it didn't work. When it dropped in, when it dropped to the ground, he kind of stood in motion and wouldn't move at all on my terrain. And I was kind of wondering what was going on with that. So when I looked into it, I realized that what it's set up to run on is a standard ground, which is layered as the default layer. Now, when I imported the project, if you look here where it says layer, you know, my layer got reset on a lot of my my level, like my island here, my seafloor, my terrain. They were all like blank, like nothing was set. So it wasn't set to any of these. I had to just go back in and reset these to default for the terrain. My seafloor I set to default. Now my water spawn was set as, actually I need to set that as water there, and so I've got that layered properly that way. So once I did that, he was fine. He was able to run around and work perfect, just like in the demo they have. Now, when I ran him inside my building, you know, I had my little building I'd been practicing with before. Well, apparently, let's go to the prefabs on that. It was reset as well. So I went to this building here, this little old building here. I had to clear that out. The layer was set to, was not set at all, really. But I just went ahead and reset everything to default on it. I just clicked the main one, dropped it to default. It gives you a prompt whether you want to apply that to the child objects as well. And I went ahead and clicked yes on that. And that was that. So that took care of it, because the floor, again, this was raised above the ground when you walk in, and the colliders and everything that were set up You know, just where it wound up being a problem when it wasn't set to default. He would get stuck in the building. As soon as he ran in, he just kind of froze. He looked, oh, you know, like he was posing or something. So once I changed that to default to reset those layers, it seemed to be the only issue that I've seen so far, and he worked just perfectly fine. Now, if you recall, back when we were setting up our inventory screen, you know, we made the choice to make, obviously not, it was a choice that was almost mandatory to be able to maneuver and manipulate the inventory screen with the mouse. We had to block any of the mouse input from controlling our characters, our third-person controller. So I had to go and make a similar change to the Invector code. And so if I highlight this right here, this is the scripts that it attaches. You get two scripts. Well, and other ones were added when I did the morph character, but the V third-person controller script, which you can control a lot of the settings from their nice little inspector panel, and then the V third-person input script. Now, this is where the camera settings were, where they get the rotation of the camera X and Y input, which are also used to help rotate the character when he's running. So you don't have to. You can still use the keys to rotate him, but the AWSD, which is nice, but you can also get the assisted turn with the mouse input if it's set. So and it works great. So what I wound up having to do was go into the input manager script, and if we jump to our Visual Studio here, and basically here's their script. It's actually well organized, much easier to me, much easier to read than the one that came with the Unity, the standard assets. You can I collapsed some of these functions here, but there's not very much code in there. The part that we were concerned with was this region here, the camera methods, camera input. And they had just a simple line: if the camera object is null, it just returns out. But they had these 4 lines right here. Actually, these three right here is all they had. So I wound up having to add this if statement here. If we're not viewing our inventory, then we'll let it execute the normal lines that were already in their script here. Otherwise, we are going to not execute any mouse input, so it won't even execute these lines. It'll just bypass this block. Get on here and set the, well, we had to turn the cursor, mouse cursor by default. They have it turned off because it's a, you know, it's generally going to be a full screen game. They turn off the mouse cursor and re-enable it. You know, I had to re-enable it using cursor.visible equals true, and they had the lock state set to locked, which puts the cursor in the center of the screen. I had to reset the lock state of the cursor to none, which will allow it to freely move around on the screen. And so that's why I added these 2 lines in here, so that when this is actually set, reviewing player inventory, when the inventory screen goes away, you know, we've got to hide the mouse again and reset the lock state to locked in the center, just like they originally had it. So I wanted to restore, you know, the way it was before. So essentially, I added what I have highlighted right now here and down here, and that was the only change I needed to make to their code, their script, since they had their camera movement tied closely into and the player movement, all that in this third-person input module here, script. I didn't have to go to a separate camera and player script like I did for the third-person controller. There was that came with the standard assets. I mean, there was the third-person user control script. If you remember, I had to go in there and change something there to block out mouse input, and also we had our own camera controller script that was created because the third person didn't have it. User control script didn't have it, that came with the standard assets. So I created a separate script for that. So we had two different scripts that we were checking this global variable be viewing player inventory. So here was just one check and it was done. So it made it real nice. So let me show you what this looks like now. If we run this, you get a chance to see the difference in the movement of the player inventory. Okay, so that's the character. That's the male character. Now, the one thing that's nice, if I don't move them with the keys, you can take the mouse and it does a 360-degree rotation. And I'm doing it slower. I also added a frame rate. You can see the frame rate's just crazy low. Got to figure out why. But once I added this morph thing and the Invector, my frame rate went to shit. So pardon the language if you got young ones watching. But anyways, the frame rate was bad. Sometimes it's up to 40. I don't know why. It's sometimes like really slow. And I'm also getting this weird kind of, you see the shadowing, that black shadow that's kind of like the lighting is kind of messed up in the background and further in the distance. It flashes. I'm going to have to research that. But let me, this is him moving. And you hit your sprint. He does a little run there. Of course, not real smooth at 10 frames. But we're gonna resolve that. We're gonna figure out what's causing that and fix that. I'm sure it's something minor. And he actually walks up here much easier. Just the camera, with the camera movement being, you can go up and down real easy. See, the camera could possibly move above the roof. And so, but as far as the pickup system, oh, that's the other thing I did have to add, because our pickup scripts were manually added to the third-party controller before that we had, the standard asset one. I had to go back in and add or attach that script here in order for it to start picking up items. So, but you see it now works. If he's not rotating anymore when we pop up our inventory. Pull it away, I can rotate. Still drag and drop our items. All that seems to be working. It's blocking things from going there. So all the scripting still worked there. Nothing was broken. There were just some fixes and things I had to add back in that, were not on that since we were adding in a new controller. But now that I have it in here, I'm kind of pleased with the way it moved in with the character. Obviously the frame rate is an issue. Like I said, let me get further out here. It's also really low right now because I'm streaming this as well. That's another thing I forgot. I normally it's been in the low 20s actually on the frames, and then upwards of 40 to 50, and it kind of varies depending on what part of the map I'm at. So I need to look at it. Like, it seems like when I get in an area where there's like a lot of trees, the frame rate goes down. So I might need to look at removing some of these trees, or look at a way to optimize them in some way. Yeah, so the frame rate, again, you could probably add another 15 frames. That would be the true frame rate, like right here. But I need to figure out, what's going on, if there's a way to optimize the controller and or the Morph3D, player as well. But that's strictly just a model, really, so I don't know how the rendering works on it. There may be rendering optimizations I could make. But yeah, it works well. I mean, and running, let me just show you when he's going over the terrain. I can not touch the mouse at all, and don't matter if it's a slope or anything, this Invector, I have to go around this tree. The Invector third-party controller just stays exactly in the direction you need to go. And it kind of does if I rotate the mouse, he does eventually turn that way, but it's kind of the camera does a slow follow. So if you turn really quick, your character is not going to be looking the direction you want it to be, or running that way right away. It does a lerp, basically, which is a slow transition over a series of frames to get there. And I probably could change that so it's instant. But you see, he's like, I let go of the mouse. He's just running sideways, just down that hill. He doesn't veer off to the left or right like like the other one I was doing. Now I'm sprinting up. But yeah, like I said, the frame rate's not doing any justice right now because I'm streaming and the frame rate is horrible. But trust me, it's much better. So if you're definitely looking for a out of the box third person controller for your game, Invector has a really good one. That's it seemed like it stemmed from the fighter style games, the melee fighter style games, but they have the shooter one, like I said, that I will look at getting at a later point in this process. But I don't know exactly when. I may wind up just taking the standard one and using it and modifying it, learn how to modify it, add my own animations to it, because their shooter one has a gun inventory system that kind of pops up. But we're implementing our own inventory system, which is going to have our own guns. So I don't really need their inventory system, but they do have it there. You can manage the guns and switch. It's like built into the shooter controller. You just hit a hotkey and as you pick up guns, it stores them in some kind of inventory system, and you can switch between them real easy. So they do a lot for it, but it's the other thing, the camera setup was all messed up. I did have to correct a lot of that. And actually the 750 value we initially had in the old camera system was actually too high. Once I swapped out the controller and with the Invector controller, and I wound up having to bring the distance down to 250 to get a similar look on our mini-map camera. So that's another change. But overall, it works great. I'm happy with it. So that's going to be it for this video. I just wanted to show that I was easily able to incorporate this. Now, I did this yesterday evening after I got off stream yesterday. So it only took like less than an hour of time to with downloading and installing and making some changes that I needed to make to get the Invector in and the Morph3D replaced. I just followed the instructions, simple instructions they had, and it worked, pretty much out of the box with a few, changes I knew I had to make, like reattaching some scripts that I custom wrote and some of the things that were specific to our scene. So yeah, it worked great. So the next step is to, start implementing some other buildings and structures and being able to reuse our items. I got a list of things. We're going to organize what we're going to do, but I do want to research this frame rate. I'll do that off stream and figure out how we can improve that so that we get some better gameplay here. Maybe I know I get a much better frame rate when the screen res is lower. Could be my system. I'm running at 1920 by 1080, which I'm getting notifications that I may not even be able to stream at that resolution, but I'm doing it anyways. So I think really a lot of it boils down to my system and what it's capable of. So that's going to be it for this video. Appreciate y'all stopping out. And check back. I'll be doing another probably short stream later if I figure anything out here that what I feel I need to show. Or maybe I'll just wait till tomorrow to get that done. But yeah, I definitely wanted to just showcase these changes so that next time we do a stream, it's not shocked. Oh, we switched everything up and I didn't kind of go over it on what I did or what changes I made to make those corrections. And there's plenty of videos out there on how to add the character in. Invector has a good series as well. So if you're using it in your project, follow their stuff. Definitely back up your project though. Don't be lazy. Just go ahead and do it, because it has the potential to mess up some settings, and if you're not really familiar with it, you don't want to reset a lot of tags and layers and things to get reset. I don't have a whole lot in my project, so it was no big deal. But someone that already has a fully developed game and you're getting ready to drop this in there, yeah, definitely back it up. Anyway, we'll talk to you later. Thanks for stopping out.